Hi, for ZDNet. I'm Karen Roby with Danny Palmer here today. We talked, Danny, a lot about ransomware attacks. Obviously, cybersecurity is something that you cover just about every day. When we talk about ransomware attacks, so often we're talking about, the targets are businesses, sometimes really small, sometimes hospital systems and educational systems. But now we're focusing a little bit more on industrial targets. This is not something we've talked much about, but it sounds like this is on the rise.
Yeah, it's an issue. It's not something that's a massive thing right now. There's only a handful of ransomware groups which have been known to try and target industrial systems. But the thing is here, they are specifically targeting these systems, which on the face of it, you might think, oh, why? How is this different to a ransomware attack against an enterprise environment or an office or a government? But fundamentally, these industrial environments, so you're talking about factories, you're talking about power plants and other critical infrastructure. They have a lot of IT and OT, which is very unique to their environments. We've seen malware attacks targeting these over the last 10 years or so, and these malware attacks have tended to be by highly sophisticated, often state-backed operators. And now it seems that there are ransomware crews looking at these attacks, which have been disclosed by various cybersecurity companies, and are mimicking them basically to try and hold industrial networks to ransom. And that's could be a big problem if this sort of thing isn't addressed in the next few years.
Yeah, most certainly. And Danny, is there any specific evidence as to why the shift a little bit? Why would they be now thinking, these ransomware gangs thinking that this would be a good target?
Ultimately, a factory production line needs to produce things. So if a criminal group manages to infect a network of a factory with ransomware, if that network is down for a week or maybe longer, a month maybe, considering how long it can take to recover from a ransomware attack, that's going to have an effect on their bottom line. It's going to affect other suppliers down the line in terms of who use parts this factory might produce. It's basically going to stop them doing what they do. And one of the reasons that ransomware is so successful is because that encryption of networks is something which is so effective. It works because a lot of organizations will simply give in and pay this ransom as they see it as the best option for getting back on track. And with these handful of crews which are going after industrial systems, they are basically kind of following the same idea that okay, it might take a bit more work to compromise an industrial system, but they can probably ask for bigger paydays, because if an industrial organization is going to pay, it's going to, they can probably demand a bit more. What's different about this is these are often environments where it's not just your standard computers and servers connected to networks. These are critical infrastructure which can have a role in doing and controlling important things, electricity, power, that sort of thing. We have seen instances where malware on systems has caused outages, from quite infamously in Ukraine a few years back in the dead of winter. So there's also an issue here where the attackers, even if they do all the things they are planning to do, infect the network with ransomware, get the money if the victim pays up, and hand over the decryption key. The way that more and more attackers are entering this space could have knock-on effects, because this isn't like enterprise equipment. If you encrypt a power supplier, that could have who knows what sort of impacts on the network or what they provide. I mean, you could theoretically unlock network again, but if it's crippled that particular infrastructure because it is old and runs in a particular way and has been damaged because of ransomware, who knows what could happen? You could have power off for a long time. So it's almost like as if these ransomware attacks are coming to more into affects the real world, for want of a better term, not just encrypting our files and our servers and our data, but potentially disrupting services we use every day as well.
Yeah, and certainly that could prove, to be devastating, Danny. And just the process of trying to get it all back up, and online, would be a massive undertaking. Obviously, we talk a lot too about, the fix. What can people do? What can companies do? And we're always working within the enterprise and looking at it. When you talk about industrial targets, pretty much the same things to keep in mind, though, right? As far as how you best protect yourself.
Yeah, pretty much the same things. No, it's important to apply these patches to your networks. It's important to use a complex passwords and have multi-factor authentication across the network. All these things can help stop attackers from getting in the first place. For a lot of these industrial environments, it's also going to be worth considering whether this stuff needs to be on an internet connected network at all. It's a whole other debate arising here with the rise of IoT in these environments. But for legacy systems, which might not be able to receive patches, due to how old some of these systems are, it's worth considering whether they should be on a separate network, from your outward-facing internet, so attackers can't compromise these things. And it takes me back to I went on a tour of a factory, and as part of a work-related thing a few years ago. And in part of this factory was a machine which was producing one particular thing. And this machine was specially developed to produce this one particular thing, and parts of the car, but it was based on something like Windows 3. It was such a bespoke piece of software, and combined with the machine that it was ultimately printing out and designing bits of a car, that a new version of it hadn't come out that was compatible with later operating systems. And this machine was disconnected from the rest of the network and actually in a protected glass case to stop it from being tampered with either remotely or physically. I mean, that's an extreme example there, but it's something that a lot of organizations and industrial environments, especially those using old technology, which can in some cases be 20 or 30 years old, should be thinking about, especially when threats like these are increasingly on the horizon. I mean, it's not something that's a massive issue right now, but it's there. It's something to think about, and something that these industrial organizations should be trying to cut off at the pass, as it were, to make sure they are protected against ransomware attacks before they become as common as we've seen in various other enterprises at the moment.
Right, before it's too late, which we have seen in many cases, Danny. All right, well, of course, much more on ransomware attack, what you need to know. All of Danny's articles up on ZDNet. We hope you'll check it out there. Thanks for watching.